what's going on. Did you see what's going on? Obviously, you've seen what's going on in California. But the governor gave this creepy speech where he was talking about speculators coming in and talking about what to do with the land of all these homes that have been burnt down while it's still only 6% contained. And he did this little dance like, I've been talking with these, with the governor of Hawaii about what to do. We got some ideas, especially.
I mean, I've got questions, sir. I don't find you to be a truth teller. Based on a long history.
Joe Rogan and Megyn Kelly just delivered a tag team takedown of Gavin Newsom so ruthless it left his hair gel running for cover. Rogan came in swinging with disbelief and biting humor, roasting Newsom's polished image and performative politics. Then Kelly stepped up with surgical precision, tearing apart his record like a prosecutor on a mission. Pandemic blunders, classroom ideology, policy whiplash, nothing was spared. Together, they exposed him as the poster child for style over substance. If smug ambition had a face, they just spotlighted it in high definition.
I was talking to Josh Green, the governor of down in Hawaii, who had some ideas around some land use concerns he has around speculators coming in, buying up properties, and the like. So we're already working with our legal teams to move those things forward, and we'll be presenting those in a matter of days, not just weeks.
With a big smile on his face. Look at the little wiggle he does with his shoulders. Speculator, watch this. Talking to Josh. Look at this little wiggle. It's excited about the possibilities of speculators coming in. And he's saying we're move forward. We're going to move forward on that. These people lost their homes. A lot of those people don't even have fire insurance because the fire insurance pulled out.
He had no dignity. That's what I was missing. There was no dignity. It just looked like a man desperate for attention. And whenever DeSantis was scoring points on him, he would interrupt over and over to try to talk over the points as just that's like a middle school debate tactic, which is pathetic. And
Joe Rogan leaned forward in his studio chair like he'd just seen a UFO land in his backyard, and out stepped Gavin Newsom, slicker than reality and twice as surreal. The name alone made Rogan shake his head, his expression a mix of disbelief and too much coffee. No warm-up needed. Just hearing California's governor launched him into a no-holds-barred rant, calling Newsom one of the most performative figures in modern politics, a man more focused on optics than outcomes.
And to these illegals who are now getting Medicaid in California, thanks to him. Illegals. So, this guy's priorities are not with keeping people safe at all. He doesn't care about the crime, about the illegals, and obviously not about the fires, which after the fact, hey, sure, so could somebody let me know how that...
Joe Rogan leaned forward in his studio chair like a guy who just watched a UFO touch down, and out walked Gavin Newsom, looking like it was his runway. Just the name made Rogan shake his head, eyes wide with that signature mix of disbelief and over-caffeinated energy. There was no build-up, no easing in. The moment California's governor came up, Rogan launched into a full-throttle rant, torching Newsom as the poster boy for performative politics, a man obsessed with image while the state crumbles behind the curtain.
President Newsom either. Nobody believes in that guy. That guy's a f***ing con man. Everything he did in California, from trying to mandate vaccines for kids to being caught public without a mask and lying about the fact that he was outdoors. Yeah. Nobody believes in that guy. He's just a politician. Just a stone-cold, narrative-driven politician. Nobody thinks he's a real human. Whether you like Trump or not, whether you think he's corrupt or not, that's a human being. You know what that guy is. Same thing with RFK Jr. Whether you believe that he's correct about vaccines or whether you believe his policies would be effective, and that's a human.
Then came the pandemic, and Rogan's tone sharpened, laced with the kind of outrage only raw hypocrisy can fuel. He tore into Newsom's lockdown logic like a surgeon wielding a grudge. One moment, the governor was barking strict stay-at-home orders, shutting down businesses, closing schools, banning church services. The next, he was spotted dining maskless at a luxury restaurant, sipping wine with lobbyists while everyday Californians were stuck at home reheating leftovers over glitchy Zoom calls. Rogan painted the scene like a dystopian sketch comedy. The king feasting in his high tower while the peasants microwave hope and wash their hands with tears.
In with California Governor Gavin Newsom, who spent the weekend trying to avoid responsibility as the fires were still burning by dropping by the the Pod Save America podcast for an attempt to clean up his own image.
I want to know the answers. So I'm the governor of California. I want to know the answer. I've got that question. I can't tell you about how many people, what happened. My own team saying what happened. And I want to get the answers. And
You're the governor.
Rogan mocked the absurdity of shutting down beaches and outdoor gyms, like fresh air had suddenly become a public health threat. To him, it wasn't about science. It was about spectacle. Newsom seemed more fixated on appearances than actual outcomes. If it looked like leadership, sounded polished, and earned a standing ovation on Twitter, it passed the Gavin test. Meanwhile, businesses were collapsing, kids were falling behind in school, and mental health was unraveling. But hey, at least the press conference backdrop was flawless.
No.
Gavin Newsom said that you shouldn't be posting this, that we're going to make it illegal, and I'm going to sign a law, and he said, Professor, suck on these nuts.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did. Elon retweets altered Kamala Harris campaign, says manipulating voices in an ad like this should be illegal. I'll be signing a bill in a matter of weeks to make sure it is. And then he says I checked with renowned world authority, Professor, suck on these nuts, and he said parody is legal in America.
Oh my God.
What a wild dude.
Wow.
What a wild dude. Because he's not scared of those folks.
Then Rogan turned to California's homelessness crisis, shaking his head like a man staring at a riddle written by lunatics. Tents, needles, and human waste covered major cities, a grim parody of progress. Yet Newsom kept insisting things were getting better. Rogan questioned how billions could be poured into the problem while the streets still looked like Mad Max with recycling bins. This wasn't compassion, he said, it was failure dressed up as empathy. And Gavin Newsom, the star of America's longest-running production of failure theater. From there, Rogan went straight into Newsom's environmental hypocrisy. The same guy who scolded the nation about green energy was crisscrossing the country on private jets, popping up at climate summits like he was emceeing the Eco-Oscars. Rogan didn't hold back, calling it rich that someone warning about rising sea levels was expanding beachfront mansions and building policy on a foundation of fantasy and photo ops.
Basically almost burned alive. The governor of California. Take a listen.
We went up to one of the canyons on the fire, sitting there feeling we're a good quarter mile away. I'm not making this up, video to bear it out. All of a sudden, we see an ember, hits the tree goes on fire, 100 seconds. God is my witness, may have been 90 seconds. The house is in flames. I have embers of flames. They're taking it off my hair, and we're running back into the car. Winds are swirling around. Garbage cans were in the air, and we were getting the hell out of there.
Okay, why is he saying his God is my witness and I'm not making this up before he tells the story? Truly,
Rogan painted Newsom as a walking contradiction, snapping photo ops next to solar panels while his own state wrestled with blackouts, droughts, and policies so dysfunctional even Tesla threw up its hands and bolted for Texas. And Rogan relished that part. He rattled off the names like a final roll call. Tesla, Oracle, Hewlett-Packard, gone. To him, it was like watching the smart kids leave the party while Gavin stayed behind to DJ a prom no one wanted to attend. He ripped into Newsom for selling California as a utopia while it crumbled into a palm tree-lined cautionary tale. Then came taxes. Rogan couldn't wrap his head around how a state with the highest tax rates still delivered crumbling infrastructure. Potholes, rolling blackouts, water rationing. It was like paying VIP prices and getting shoved through the alley entrance. He quipped that Californians were shelling out for luxury governance but getting a glitchy discount app run by overeducated interns with no exit plan.
Leaders saying what's going on. Our state,
and you weren't getting straight answers from
I was getting different answers. When you start getting different answers, then I'm not getting the actual story.
So you decided the thing to do would be to go on Pod Save America to talk about it because in the end, it's all about you. This is another David Muir, folks. He is just as vain and worried about his image in the middle of this emergency as David Muir with his little fake fireman's jacket and clothespin.
And just when you thought Rogan was done, he dove headfirst into California social policies. He tore into the classroom agendas, the endless redefinition of basic terms, and criminal justice experiments that turned shoplifting into a casual pastime. It felt, he said, like the state was being run by a committee of hyperactive TikTok influencers, with Gavin Newsom as their overconfident spokesperson. That smooth, polished cadence of his? Rogan said it sounded less like leadership and more like a guy auditioning to narrate a luxury car commercial. Then came Megyn Kelly, and she didn't hold back. Newsom didn't speak to people, he lectured them. Everything he said dripped with self-congratulation, like it came from someone who hadn't pumped his own gas in a decade. Listening to him, she said, was like sitting through a motivational seminar led by a guy who thought empty slogans were real solutions and smugness was a virtue. She zeroed in on his obsession with image. Gavin wasn't a governor, he was a walking campaign poster. Every move, every speech, every carefully staged gesture was engineered for optics. The problem? While Newsom had mastered the politics of appearance, he'd completely failed at the politics of substance. California wasn't thriving, it was enduring him.
And on X, I addressed Gavin Newsom personally. He follows me, so I tagged him. And I'm going to be honest, I begged him to please stop this for all the reasons stated on our YouTube feed. And he didn't get back to me. But I think I was shooting at the wrong public official who followed.
Then Kelly zeroed in on Newsom's COVID record, but with a sharper, more surgical tone. She argued that he didn't use the pandemic to protect the public, but to expand his own power and tighten control over the narrative. Emergency orders morphed into lifestyle mandates, with endless restrictions for ordinary people, while he and his political allies conveniently carved out exceptions for themselves. She painted a grim portrait of a state where repeat offenders walked free, petty theft was practically decriminalized, and law enforcement was vilified by politicians who never had to live with the consequences of the policies they pushed. Newsom's version of justice, she said, didn't promote fairness, it fueled chaos. He wasn't reforming the system, he was dismantling it. Kelly then took a scalpel to his public safety record, his failing education agenda, and his hollow housing promises. Each critique landed like a well-prepared case file, detailed, precise, and delivered with a tone that suggested Gavin Newsom wouldn't survive 5 minutes under real journalistic scrutiny. She called him the media's golden child, not because he was effective, but because he echoed the right talking points and checked the right ideological boxes.
Governor Gavin Newsom told the Los Angeles Times Panera would not be exempt from the law. The spokesperson also denied a claim, the Bloomberg piece, which cited sources close to the matter, that Newsom pushed for an exemption that applies to businesses that bake bread and sell it as a standalone item, calling the report absurd. So is it a fake story?
Or is it something that they
might have corrected
course quickly? Yeah.
And she didn't let up. Kelly blasted Newsom for his constant grandstanding on national issues, dragging Florida and Texas into nearly every speech like a reflexive deflection. Instead of addressing California's unraveling, he spent his time tweeting about other states, trying to score points by comparison while his own house was on fire. It wasn't leadership, she argued, it was influencer behavior dressed up as governance. She hammered the point further, calling Gavin an actor through and through. His attempts to connect with everyday voters, she said, were painfully awkward, like dropping him in a diner with a map and instructions, and he'd still ask for the script. He was so insulated by his elite bubble, she joked, he probably thought gas prices were still printed in glossy magazines. Every policy, every carefully crafted soundbite, came not from real-world experience but from think tanks and media consultants. Her conclusion hit like a gavel. Gavin Newsom isn't dangerous because he's malicious, he's dangerous because he genuinely believes the hype. He thinks style can stand in for substance, that applause equals approval, and that photo ops amount to progress. He's the polished face of political narcissism, Kelly said. Slickly packaged, expertly sold, and disastrously hollow.
Big Daddy got out there with his bazooka and was like, I solved this problem, and you governors better freaking go along or you're gonna get it. And I'm not kidding around. I'll read you what he posted. Stand by. It's amazing. Okay, he posts the following. California, under the leadership of radical left Democrat Gavin Newsom, continues to illegally...
As Rogan and Kelly set down their verbal torches, one thing was undeniable. Gavin Newsom wasn't just a governor, he was a symbol. A polished avatar of performative politics wrapped in progressive packaging. Kelly zeroed in on California's education system, dismantling the myth that it was leading the nation. In her words, it wasn't a model, it was a slow-motion academic collapse dressed up in buzzwords. Under Newsom, she argued, classrooms had turned into ideological battlegrounds where actual learning took a backseat to political theater. Kids struggled to read at grade level, but at least they could recite a list of identity acronyms they couldn't even spell. She mocked Newsom's constant talk of educational equity, noting that while he boasted about progress, parents were pulling their kids from public schools in record numbers. Parents don't want equity, she said. They want math. And when they asked for results, all they got was a glossy brochure on emotional intelligence, and a higher property tax bill. It was like ordering a steak, she said, and being handed a coloring book.
So the important thing is, how is his hair? Did it or did it not have embers in it? And you tell me what the answer is to my question about what the press would be doing to Ron DeSantis if he swung by the Ruthless podcast in the middle of the hurricane. The fires are still burning. There's zero purpose in going on Pod Save America other than to burnish his own image.
And of course, that's all he cares about, right? That's why he tells this harrowing story.
Joe Rogan jumped back in, doubling down on Newsom's talent for rebranding failure as visionary leadership. He mocked how every new crisis in California came with a shiny new slogan, like Gavin was marketing collapse for social media engagement. Power outages were rebranded as energy transitions. Crime spikes. Justice reform. Tax hikes. Investments in the future. Rogan laughed and said only Gavin Newsom could preside over rolling blackouts and still smile like he was unveiling a new theme park. Then came the kicker. The real punchline, Rogan said, is that Gavin Newsom actually thinks this asterisk record qualifies him to run the whole country. He imagined Newsom pitching a presidential campaign like a guy trying to sell timeshares in a hurricane zone, flashing that perfectly rehearsed grin, gesturing through smoke, traffic, and dysfunction, and promising to bring his California miracle to the rest of America. Rogan shook his head. If that doesn't terrify people, he said, nothing will.